Good evening, everyone. I'm President Emily Stevens. I called a special board meeting adoption of the final budget of May 18th, 2026 to order. The time is 5:01. I would like to remind everyone to please silence your electronic devices. We will open 1.01, our flag salute. Trustee Dominguez, please lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Before I open 1.02, is there anyone who did not get a chance to complete a public speaker card? If not, please come up to the front and grab one, and then when you're done, please pass them off to our amazing staff up here. Okay, Trustee Zamora, would you mind making a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam President, members of the board, I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with the following changes. Take item 2.03, public hearing fiscal year 2027, before item 2.02, 2026 to 2027 final budget.
Do I have a second? Trustee Biasotti.
I will second the motion.
Fantastic. Let's vote. Trustee Johnson?
I can't vote, but I'm here.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I do that every time. I apologize, but I'm glad
All
you're here. All right, motion passes. Let's move on to 2.01, public speaker cards. A reminder again, public speaker cards. All right, 2.01 is the transfer of fiscal year 2026 budget between funds. We'll pass that off to our amazing CFO, Mr. Justin Dayhoff.
Thank you, Madam President. Superintendent Ebert, trustees, Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer for the record. First item tonight, 2.01, is the transfer of interest allocation from the debt service fund over to the statutory reserve fund. This item corresponds to an investment interest transfer. So what we are doing today, and what we are asking for your authority to do today, is to take the excess interest that was earned in one account and move it over to a different account. To explain further, the reason we do this, our debt service fund as a district, if you want to think about it as in personal banking terms, it's like having a savings account just for your mortgage payments. Under regulation, our debt service fund can only contain enough resources for about 13 months worth of payments, or 13 mortgage payments, if you will. What happens at the end of the year, once our interest is allocated back, which is done according to the rules as the establishment of the fund, once that interest is allocated back, if there is additional revenue in the fund beyond what is needed to pay for debt service, we transfer that over to a different capital fund. This is that transfer. We're moving it over to Fund 370, which is another capital fund. So again, unfortunately, as much as I wish these were all dollars going towards salaries and classrooms, these are the capital resources for our schools, right? These are going to the excess statutory reserve fund, of which we are required to maintain at least a 25% balance. We maintain in excess of 75% for the reasons we've previously discussed as it relates to our bond program. Our ratings agencies allow us to consider that balance in terms of our broader net position and fund balance when they give us our ratings at the end of each year and each time when we issue our bonds. With that, trustees, I stand for questions.
I will open it up for discussion. Questions? Trustee Esparza-Stoffergen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dayhoff, for that overview. So I like that you clarified because of the fact that the funds could not and cannot be used for classrooms or salaries. So could you provide just details on what it potentially could be utilized for?
Trustee, thank you for the question. This actually, our statutory reserve spending is limited to the approved statutory items for that fund that this body approves. For example, just a couple of weeks ago, we added some landscaping services to that. So that full list of Fund 370 expenditures confines and sets the areas in which we can spend those resources specifically, and of course in accordance with our district's capital improvement plan as approved.
Trustee Bustamante Adams?
Thank you, Madam President. My question, Mr. Dayhoff, is I know that the minimum is 25%, but we go up to 75%. Has it ever gone beyond the 75%?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer for the record. Not in the current policy and reg of which I'm aware. That's where our current threshold is defined for us internally as a district. I would have to go and see the last time that that reg changed and whether or not we modified that specific threshold, but it's been in place for a while.
Okay, and then my second question has to do is the interest that money is earned. What is the interest rate that we earn on that amount?
Trustee, thank you for the question. This is actually interest earned from our investment portfolio.
Okay.
So hence the magnitude of the amount.
Thank you.
I have a question. So we're taking interest income earned from the debt account and we're moving it over to capital funding, if I'm generalizing. And it looks like it's about 110?
Trustee, that's correct, yes.
Okay. In the past, I'm just trying to understand, that's all. But in the past, has the school district, what has the school district typically used income generated funds from the debt account for? Is it typical to use it for capital, or just wondering?
Trustee, thank you for the question. That's exactly right. This is a process that is not new to now, not new to this year, not new to this particular occurrence. The only thing that's actually a little different this year is normally we route those funds through 335, which is a different capital fund to get really into the weeds. It's our capital replacement fund on the way to our capital service fund, but we spoke with our auditors this year and our attorneys, and they advised us that was an unnecessary step. That statute defines both of those as capital accounts. But there's no difference. The fund ultimately, these dollars ultimately go there each year. And again, part of that is because we are required to maintain the debt service fund with just the amount for those 13 months of payments. So we always have to transfer excess in any way.
Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. Just to piggyback to Trustee Stevens, President Stevens, when you're saying it's going through our auditors for the district, does that also include like our audit advisory committee? Are they in the loop of these conversations?
Trustee, thank you for the question. This is a matter of internal policy when we move when we make an adjustment like this. So typically what we'll do, because we want to make sure that we're moving expeditiously, but also within the confines of statute and reg, we reach out to our external auditors, Eide Bailly, and then we reach to bond counsel, and then we also reach to our bond municipal financial advisor, all of which are approved and designated by the audit advisory committee. So we consult them and we make sure that we have written approval to do so prior to making any action.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. And so, Mr. Dayhoff, as in a previous briefing that we had, just to clarify, this isn't because there was a mistake being made. This is pretty much a standard practice.
Trustee, for what it's worth, not only is it not a mistake, but this is a sign of a healthy investment portfolio of the district to the point that we have this amount of allocated interest that we're able to do. When we receive our bond proceeds, we sell in tranches over the course of the year. We try to be responsible both with how much debt we take on for the purposes of interest, but responsible also as stewards of those resources once we receive them. So when we get those bond proceeds, we don't just put them in a low interest or a stable account. We put them into our investment portfolio so that we as a district can maintain and receive the highest possible return from our taxpayer dollars as we can, and to turn those into more dollars for schools and kids.
Thank you so much for the elaboration.
Trustees, I see nobody else in the queue. I would entertain a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Trustee Johnson.
Thanks. I actually don't have any questions. It's very clear.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah. Do we have public comment on this one? We do. Okay, 2.01. We're on 2.01. We don't have anybody? Okay. Nope. No public comment? Okay. Trustee Bustamante Adams?
Thank you, Madam President. I move to approve the authorization to include the fiscal year 2026 budget transfer of excess investment revenues generated for debt service between the debt service fund account, and the rest we read out on.
Do I have a second? Trustee Esparza-Stopperkin?
Second.
Great, let's vote. Motion passes. That closes us out on 2.01. We will now open 2.03, right? We're opening 2.03 before 2.02 because it is essentially the public hearing. So this is,
You have to go back to 1.02 because you have public comment. You have to redo that one. You have to redo it because you have public comment on 1.02.
Gomez, yeah. Okay. So it was just brought to my attention that on 1.02, which is the adoption of the agenda, we had a public comment card. We did not see it until after we had already closed 1.02, so I will open it back up and allow our public commenter to speak on 1.02.
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president, former president of Wake Up, former deputy director of LULAC for education, or in education, and a father of 7. The reason I was asking to speak on this because this would needed to be said before you guys went into the other part of it, but we already got there. My comments today is about the adoption of the agenda and the standards set in governance policy GP-4.1 regarding board members' conduct and ethics. The public depends on the board following the process of that transparency, predictability, and fair, and when the agenda is adopted. It is not just a procedure vote, it is a comment of honesty and ethical conduct under GP 4.1. Requires trustee to act with integrity, avoid manipulation of agenda for personal or political reasons, or ensure that the community has a clear notice of what will be discussed. Families, educators, and students deserve the confidence that nothing is being hidden, rushed, or rearranged in a way to limit public's participation. The agenda should reflect respect for the community and compliance with the open meeting law. I was asking the board to listen to this so that they can uphold the spirit of GP 4.1 by adopting the agenda in a mannerism that's transparent, ethical, and centered on the public's right to know. Trust is building through consistency, principles, actions, and this step, adopting the agenda, is where trust begins. And it's your responsibility to be truthful and honest and not use political gain to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you. So, my understanding is that because we usually do public comment and then we vote, and we did not do that, we're going to have to re-vote on this item. So do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. I moved that we adopt the agenda as posted.
Thank you. Do I have a
No, adopt the agenda and take item 2.03, public hearing fiscal year 2027, before item 2.02, 26 through 2027, final budget.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Let's vote. Motion passes. Okay, now we move on to 2.03, which is the public hearing. This is the time and place that was advertised for the public hearing on the tentative budget per Nevada Revised Statute NRS 354.596. An interested person shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning the fiscal year 2027 tentative budget of the Clark County School District. So at this time, there's no presentation for this piece. This is really for the public. So I'm going to look for public comment. We have one for 2.03, Mr. David Gomez, and it looks like we have more. Okay. Can you? These are all 2.3, 2.03.
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance President. I wanted to address the items detailed in the list in the documents. This board passed actions on audits, budgets, gifts, contracts, and financial oversight. This record is just not a list of agenda items. It is evidence of the legal responsibility to hold you under the Nevada law. It is the highlights where transparency and accountability must be strengthened. This document shows that a trustee routinely approves majority financial actions, including the annual independent audit report, the amended final budget, and multiple capital and facility contracts. For example, the records includes 3.01, presentation of annual independent auditor reports for fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2021, under Nevada Revised Statute 354.624. Trustees are legally required to review and acknowledge the independent audit, including findings of noncompliance required. These are not ceremony presentations. These are statutory obligations. The record shows also independent acceptance of reports of gifts, such as 12.01, information on reports of gifts under Nevada Revised Statute 386.390, and the principles of public fiduciary duty. All gifts in school districts must publicly disclose and prevent conflict, interests of ensuring transparency when gifts are reported only as informative items. Without discussion or explanation, it raised questions on whether the board is fulfilling the duty to ensure that the donations do not influence the district's operation and decision-making. Additionally, the document shows trustees approving the major budget actions, including 5.02, 2021 to 2022, amending the final budget motion passed under Nevada Revised Statute 598. Trustees must adopt budgets that are accurate, transparent, and fully compliant with the state law. This includes ensuring that the budget changes are properly noticed to the public under the Nevada Revised Statute, which requires clear and complete description of every action item. When financial items are vague, incomplete, or presented without explanation, the board risks violating the open meeting law. The Attorney General has repeatedly held the material financial decision cannot be burdened and unclear agenda language. When board approves budgets, contracts, or auditory response without meaningful public discussion, it is undermining both the law and the public trust. This historical record shows a pattern of trustees are voting on multi-million-dollar decisions with limited public explanation. That is not what Nevada law requires. Trustees are fiduciarily responsible, legally responsible to safeguard the public funds, insurance compliance with Nevada Revised Statute, and maintaining full transparency in every financial action. I am demanding that this board meets the legal standards, not just the minimum standards. When you approve budgets and when you accept gifts and when you review audits and when you authorize contracts, you must do this with full public disclosure, clear explanation, and strict adherence to Nevada 241 and 354 under ethic obligations of a public office.
Thank you. Next, we have Karen Burney. After Karen, Misty, please.
Good evening. I'm Karen Burney. I'm the Director of Paraprofessionals with ESEA. I'm here to talk about urgency, that safety, and staffing crisis in our special ed classrooms. Right now, our paraprofessionals are working under extreme and dangerous conditions. We are dealing...
Karen, can I ask you, is this going to come back to the budget?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. We are asking basically for more SPTAs in our autism rooms and our classrooms that are STAR programs. Under the extreme dangerous conditions we're dealing with, there have behaviors that we need 2 people in a classroom, 2 assistants. So we are asking for 2 of them to be in there. And that's because whenever the teacher is alone, they shouldn't be. They need to be in there for urgencies. If a child runs out, you have to have somebody in the classroom for the other children. And just for safety of anything else happening. So please put special ed programs with 2 aides in there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Missy Olmos?
Good afternoon. Misty Olmos, ESCA Secretary Treasurer and a community member. Forgive me, I haven't even reviewed my stuff. If CCSD is serious about addressing the structural special education funding gap, advocacy cannot stop at local budget adoption. As the 5th largest school district in the nation, CCSD shouldn't be publicly leading the way and engage in Nevada federal delegation to push the sustainable IDA funding and address the longstanding historical underfunding of special education. Federal law requires these services, but Congress has never fully funded them. For decades, districts across the country have been left absorbing the differences year after year, placing growing pressure on staffing, classrooms, evaluations, transportation, behavior supports, and services for students with disabilities. The people carrying this burden every day are educators, support professionals, bus staff, aides, therapists, service providers. They are being asked to do more with less while students need continuing increasing and complexity and intensity service. When IDA remains chronically underfunded, the consequences show up everywhere. Larger loads, staffing shortages, burdens, turnovers, delayed evaluations, inconsistency in transportation, overloaded classrooms. We are losing experienced educators and support professionals because the workload is unsustainable and compensation often does not reflect the realities of this job. If we want inclusive schools that truly meet the needs of students with disabilities, then we must also invest in the workforce responsibility for delivering these services. That means better pay, safer working conditions, manageable caseloads, adequate staffing, retention efforts, and real support for professionals holding these systems together every day. Families and staff should not have to come here year after year begging for adequate funding while local districts continue to absorbing the consequences and decades of federal underfunding. CCSD has influences, visibility, and platforms many districts do not have. District leadership, trustees, and labor partners and community advocates should be publicly and aggressively engaging in Nevada's federal delegation and pushing Congress to finally meet its obligation to fully fund IDEA. Because right now, students with disabilities, their families, and the workforce serving them are paying the price for chronic federal underfunding. Nevada's children's and the people supporting them deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan Giles? After Jan will be Dolly.
Hi, good evening. For the record, Jan Giles, ESEA President. I'm speaking tonight to highlight the need for prioritizing special education funding in the upcoming legislative session and to urge you to support a BDR focused on staffing and safety in self-contained special education classrooms. This is not a future problem. It is happening every single day in our schools. Currently, autism and STAR classrooms operate with a dangerous staffing gap. Most classrooms have only one teacher and one special education special programs teacher assistant. When the assistant requires, when the assistant takes the required break, the teacher is left alone with multiple high-need students for 45 minutes. There are also instances where the SPTA is also left alone in the classroom. One individual cannot simultaneously provide instruction, manage behavior, prevent elopement, and ensure student safety. Such conditions would be deemed unacceptable in any other high-risk environment, such as a medical or professional health facility, yet this has become normalized in our schools. This leads to predictable risks, including injuries, classroom evacuations, and staff burnout, which further drive high turnover and chronic vacancies. Recruitment and retention are worsening because compensation does not reflect the significant physical and emotional demands of these roles, especially following the new training requirements for the SPTAs. This issue is particularly acute in the Clark County School District. While charter and private schools pull away general education enrollment, CCSD serves the students with the highest needs and liabilities in the Valley. We are not receiving the funding necessary to meet these intensive responsibilities, while most charter and private schools are not held to the same standard of service. We need targeted special education funding that reflects the reality of our student population. I respectfully ask the board to support funding for 2 SPTAs in autism and STAR classrooms, higher pay for special education support professionals, additional floating assistance at school sites to ensure no classroom is ever left with only one adult. This is a matter of safety, staffing, and essential student services. The current system creates preventable risk every day. This is a resolvable problem if we choose to prioritize it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Lastly, for 2.03, we have Ms. Dolly Rowan.
Hi, Dr. Ebert, trustees. I have kind of taken initiative last year to try to move this action alone, solo. It didn't go very far. And this year, I'm pushing it hard, very hard. I watch every day students getting hurt, staff getting hurt. We need funding in our special ed. Now, I'm moving this as best I can with the support of NSEA, ESEA, and we're going to try to legislate, but I'm going to ask you to please prioritize the safety of our students and our staff. We have to change this. We cannot keep ignoring what's happening in the classrooms. I'm asking you to legislate for the funding to help us support the changes that are needed at DOE for those 2 SPTAs, that class ratio and the STAR and autism programs must be changed. We cannot continue leaving teachers who are usually a sub alone in those classrooms with no skills. And they're flipping those subs every day most of the time. We cannot continue to have our students and staff at risk. We also need to pay them more. I recognize there's no one wanting those jobs. Why would I take that job as a SPTA where I'm getting beat up every day when I can take another one where I might change a diaper? So please, we have to pay them more. I want you to consider legislating for that funding also. And for next year's budget, I don't know if it's here, but we've got to find the money to at least provide a CTT at every site to cover those self-contained programs when those SPTAs go on their daily 45-minute break. Those teachers are left alone. And I don't care what the size is or what the disability is, no staff should be left alone in those classrooms every day with just one adult. Things happen, and we can do better. So please, in next year's budget, find the money for at least a CTT at every site that is assigned only to give breaks for those self-contained classrooms, and help us legislate. Please help us legislate to get the funding that is needed to make the changes that we need to provide the safety for our students. Here's my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes 2.03. And now we are ready for 2.02, the 2026 to 2027 final budget. This is for possible action. I'll hand it over to Mr. Dayhoff.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, I'm Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer, here to present the district's fiscal year 2027 final budget. We've prepared this presentation of the final budget to provide you with an overview as it is represented in required state forms. Along with this presentation, you will find those state forms included as reference 2.02B and a summary of staff recommendation to approve the amended final budget, accompanied by a summary of changes from the tentative budget included as reference 2.02A. Tentative budget was just presented on April 9th, so we will keep our presentation as efficient as possible, given that there is very little change between the two. Do please note that reference 2.02D is a Spanish version of this evening's presentation. I'll now hand over this portion of the presentation to Diane Bartholomew, our Deputy Chief Financial Officer, to summarize the development process before I dig into the final numbers.
Evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Ebert, Diane Bartholomew, Deputy CFO for the record. The budget development process includes a series of activities involving collaboration between the budget team, division heads, and school leaders. Fiscal year 2027, or fiscal year ending 2027, runs from July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. The timeline slides should be very familiar. The district is required to submit a final budget in June. This budget continues to be developed using layers of projections. Expenditures for the current fiscal year are not yet known, as the year is still in progress, and we will receive invoices through August 31st, so projections for current year final expenditures are calculated. Student enrollment is not known, so projections for enrollment are forecasted. Again, please remember that final budget is not actually the final budget. Once the current fiscal year 2026 closeout processes are complete, the district develops the amended final budget, by which time we have actual expenditures and actual enrollment for us, which is revenue. The final budget you see tonight includes no changes to school-level budgets and only adjustments related to end-of-year adjustments, including special education from the tentative budget. The amended final budget is required by NRS to be submitted before January 1st to the Nevada Department of Taxation. We will bring that forward in the fall with final enrollment and when fiscal year 2026 is closed. Okay, the budget development process. Let's begin. These are four primary requirements for the development of the budget. For fiscal year 2027, the due dates are listed on the slide. The final budget must be submitted by June 8th and then amended final budget by December 31st. This slide provides for you a listing of the funds that we report in the state forms. Again, reference 2.02B. There are no changes here from our tentative budget. The district's entire budget is represented in the materials provided for you tonight, and you will find revenue and expenditure detail for each of these funds within the state forms. I'll give you a brief overlook. As you look at this sample state form page, you can see the budget cycle, fund, and document title on the bottom left corner of each form, with the remainder of the form consisting of lists and tables of the actual budget information and calculations. This slide is intentionally blurry for demonstration purposes. This is a listing of the schedules that make up the state forms. Again, reference 2.02B. There is no change to the composition of the state forms from the tentative budget. The schedule remains the same. We highlight two of those at this time for continued emphasis. So Schedule B1, which is page 4 of the reference material. B1 is the foundation of the entire operating budget because it calculates how much of the state of Nevada is legally required to fund the Clark County School District. For fiscal year 2027, the state finalized the adjusted base per pupil amount at $9,572, applied to a forecast weighted enrollment of 2,074 and 242 students. That produces total adjusted base funding of $2.63 billion. When weighted funding for at-risk students, English learners, and gifted students is added, along with local special education support and transportation, total state education funding equals $3.61 billion. Every instructional staffing decision, program allocation, and reserve calculation that follows is driven by the information on this state form schedule. And the next is Schedule AA, which is page 5 of your material. This schedule aggregates every revenue source across the district, across every fund. For fiscal year 2027, CCSD's total budgeted resources equal $9.407 billion. After removing interfund transfers to avoid double counting, the district's net authorized spending equals $8.561 billion. This tells the public not only how much funding supports schools, but also the scale of CCSD as a financial system, including operations, capital, grants, and enterprise funds. CCSD, with more than an $8 billion budget, would, for example, qualify in the private sector as a Fortune 500 company. The remaining schedules listed on the slide lay out the details within the budget. Please note there is no change or increase to the district's net financial position from tentative budget. That is, there is no new funding this final budget iteration. Now, with that information, I will turn your attention over to the Chief Financial Officer, Justin Dayhoff, while I lose my voice, to share with you fiscal year 2027 final budget.
Good evening again, trustees. Justin Dayhoff, Chief Financial Officer for the record. I'll take you through the financial data of the budget in these remaining slides. As mentioned earlier, you are seeing information for all of the district's funds. This is the list of each fund within the fiscal year 2027 budget. The complete district budget is over $8.5 billion. All of these funds are reflected in the state forms by revenue, then expense. Tonight, I will focus on our major operating funds, the general fund, special education fund, and the weighted funds, which are noted here on the slide in bold. We'll start with revenue, money in, and then go to expenditures, money out, making sure those two remain balanced. The changes to this slide compared to April's tentative budget are provided as an additional reference item, 2.02A, which includes a narrative summary. I'll embed those changes within my forthcoming discussion here as well. The general fund at nearly $4 billion is our main operating account and includes four main sources. State sources, primarily the State Education Fund, the amount of our allocation determined via the pupil-centered funding plan. State sources include also a portion of special education and transportation revenue. Local sources include things like donations, tuition, local taxes, and interest income. Federal sources here are general fund revenue, like federal impact aid. Federal impact aid often generates questions in particular about why here, this is federal, it says federal, it even says it in the name, federal. Federal impact aid are revenue associated with federally owned land that exists within the jurisdiction that we aren't otherwise able to generate revenue on. So it makes up for that, and it comes back in their general fund, not as a federal fund reimbursement. Medicaid administrative claiming reimbursement is also here in general funds. Lastly, other financing sources include our medium-term bonding proceeds, and you can see that by far the largest source of general operating revenue is state sources. In fact, over 84% of our general resources come from the state. Other funding sources account for the remaining 16% of general resources combined. The special education budget is projected at $787 million. This amount includes revenue directly from state sources, but state special education funding and IDEA are not enough to meet our mandated service requirements. As a result, we support the special education fund with the transfer from the general fund, which includes within it that PCFP special education allocation. We did increase that transfer from the tentative budget as we close out the year, which does not reflect any sort of new revenue. It just continues to update our actual costs based on our current federally required programs and services. We do not, as you will see here, have a decrease in general fund expenditures as we anticipated our reconciliation as part of our continued spring budget process. This slide represents non-special education weighted funding provided through the PCFP in three other categories. Weighted funding provided from the state to schools for specific student populations, including our English language learners at $188 million, gifted and talented at $20 million, and our at-risk appropriation allocation at $159 million. In entirety, these funds total about $367 million, which does include a small portion of support from the general fund. In the final budget here, we did move central office English language learner staff from an expenditure against the English language learner fund, followed by a general fund transfer, to instead an expenditure direct to the general fund with no transfer. That does show as a $7 million increase in expenditures on the overall budget, but that is our end-of-year reconciliation for our EL account. The opening fund balance you see here reflects unspent balances from the prior year, essentially school carry forward. Per pupil amounts from the PCFP, as you see here, have been allocated for the 25-27 biennium, and there are no changes here from the tentative budget. And to that end, we've gone through the resources or the revenue or the money in, if you will, of the budget. This slide shows a summary of those resources against expenditures of the same categories. As I've noted, these are changes, there are changes on the slide from tentative, which are also described specifically and explicitly in 2.02A for additional narrative. One additional item to note here, particularly as we look at end fund balance, it becomes important to break that out by and across the different funds we have, noting again that debt service continues to drive that overall calculation. Our general fund and fund balance, as you'll see in a second, remains quite low respectively, but stable for us as a district, as we will show you. As we mentioned, our general fund being the main source of operation, it also illustrates how the majority of our funds support our costs and positions to support our schools. Salaries and benefits remain the largest expenditure. We see an increase here as well from the previous tentative budget, as I mentioned, associated with our end-year true-up on our English language learner central office transfer. Additional transfers are going to be broken down here upcoming on slide 23. But in the meantime, within the Special Education Fund, we also see that most of those expenditures are projected to fund staff positions, 97.5% in this case. Those are folks providing instruction, support, and transportation to students with disabilities in alignment in accordance with federal law. Similar to the general and special education funds, a majority of weighted funds are also consumed by salary and benefits to support pupils who are identified as eligible in those categories under the law. And one of the last elements of the state forms for approval by the board is the schedule of transfers. These are necessary, as we noted previously, to supplement those funds that need additional, for example, the Special Education Fund, and reflect the transfers I described and broke out on the slides preceding. Although the district receives those resources from the state, general funds are still required to cover some of the costs in those areas. All told, our fiscal health remains stable and increasing overall. If you look back to fiscal year 2018, you'll see our lowest point at just under 1%. We use our unassigned ending fund balance as a general measure of health. At that time, we had very limited financial flexibility, and we're operating in a highly constrained environment, but since then, what you see is not a sharp rebound, steady, disciplined recovery. We're trying to be intentional to make sure resources continue to stay invested in students in classrooms, and not into that balance. To that end, lastly, we have met the requirements of state financial health. We have presented a balanced budget. We have to make sure in doing so that our unassigned ending fund balance meets two separate requirements of Nevada law and district regulation. It does so. We present this final budget for you, for your approval, and at this time, we're happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Trustees? Trustee Esparza-Stoffergen?
Thank you so very much for that comprehensive and all of the documents ahead of time. I appreciate having that preview and then now seeing some of the same, but we were able to kind of, I think, digest it a little bit more. You definitely make it so that we can really understand it. My question is actually to our superintendent first, and then I'll follow up with you both. We attended a session in Reno regarding special ed specifically, not to put you on the spot, but I know you have such good memories about the special ed training that we received. And would you share and kind of inform us how underfunded we are and maybe kind of give a high level a why?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Specifically, when we talk about IDEA, at the federal level, it is supposed to be funded at 40%. At the federal level, 40%. Right now, it's funded about 13%. And so when you look at that difference, and having worked for two different governors, both of them had asked when I was in my prior role as state superintendent to work with the federal delegation to increase that amount of funding. So much so that I know that both of them wrote, memos and information to the administration directly of, okay, we're not going to go from 13 to 40 in 1 year, but let's start making progress. So that those components of the federal level is there. The state level of funding is something that we continue to ask for increase, right? The federal is not there, and so where do you attain those funds? You look internally. You can see through this presentation the transfer of general funds into special education. And so meeting all of those, to be able to meet all of those requirements, that's why you see that large transfer to be able to meet those requirements. Would we like to go above and beyond, where we're at now? Absolutely. It's something we continue to advocate for, and we'll move forward as the board requests.
Thank you for that clarity. I know that there was this huge disparity between what the federal is giving and also at the state level. And then I guess as a follow-up, and because you've seen for the past maybe trend 3 to 5 years, what kind of a percentage approximately, I don't want definitive dollars, are we seeing every year with the increase of transferring general funds to special ed, and what can we anticipate in the next 3? Let's stop there.
Trustee, thank you for the question. And there are costs increase in special education for a number of different reasons. They increase not just for the cost to provide the same resource in the same way as the previous year. They also increase as need increases. And to your point, when a student receives an individualized education plan, that's essentially a contract with us, with the federal government, but not necessarily one, to the superintendent's point, that is fully funded. I mean, those federal rates were last calculated, the reimbursement rate of which that underfunding is based on, goes back to 1999. It was the SEEP study, the Special Education Expenditure, can't remember the last letter of the acronym, but that's the last time there was a national cost estimate for what those provisions look like. So to answer your question, first of all, we as field work hard to isolate what the cost of special education service are so that we can continue to advocate for that broadly. Within the district, within our formula, we continue to see an increase that relates proportionally to the number of students that increase with a special education. So as you see our number of share of students enrolled in special education in the district increase, it's about a parallel increase in the cost within the district.
Just as a quick follow-up, and I wanted to go on record that Trustee Bustamante Adams and I attended a NASB session, and special education funding was definitely a conversation amongst all 17 districts. So I'll put myself back in the queue. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Dayhoff, so I just want to make sure, earlier we talked about the debt service fund, and so do I find that on page 13 or page 19? So I want to make sure which number I'm looking at that would represent our previous discussion.
Trustee, if you could give me one moment, please, to pull the forms and confirm page number for you.
And if while you're looking, because we took money from the debt service fund and transferred into the capital replacement fund, so I just want to make sure the amounts that I'm looking at them correctly.
Yeah, Trustee, thank you. You can see it really in two ways. So there's summary level information. If you're looking in the state forms, which are referenced 2.02B, first one you're going to look at is page 3. Forgive me, Trustee, page 5 of 132. You'll notice on top where you can see the overall debt service. With regard to the individual transfer for this appropriation, and forgive me on this, I believe it's about page 100. And I'll have, while Deputy Bartholomew pulls the exact page number for that, Trustee, I can also show you in the presentation where you would see that transfer.
So here we are. Because that one is the debt service. I think that one.
So the roll-up within the slide itself, so slide 23 is where you see the roll-up of the transfer. So that transfer is reflected within the debt service fund you see here, that $85 million.
Okay, just so help me out, so that debt service fund, we increased it by the transfer that we just approved, right?
Trustees, so for this one, we're actually taking from the debt
Taking it
service fund,
from?
but part of
Okay.
what we haven't done yet, at the end of each year, we allocate our interest out. So what we're suggesting here is that in the course of allocating the interest, it goes immediately from the debt service fund all the way right to Fund 370. So you'll see it on the statutory reserve portion.
So we took 100,
It's 110, I believe, 110.4.
110, right, from the debt service fund, which was 85 million, and then transferred it into the capital replacement fund. And that amount is projected there, the 121.
That's good. Well, and yes, if I could, the amount that was moved into the debt service fund was also moved out of the debt service fund.
Okay.
So this is new interest allocation, right? So this was the money that was invested in our portfolio based on the proceeds. When we allocated that back out, we didn't need to put all of that back into debt service fund because it has enough to be solvent to pay for the entirety of our debt service payments for the year. So that excess interest portion is what goes back into, to your point, to our capital.
Thank you so much for that clarity. And then my last question on expenditures. Did I hear correctly that it might have been previously that our insurance rates did not go up substantially? Is that accurate?
Trustee, thank you for the question, especially regarding insurance, but that is correct. Our insurance rates remain stable. I would expect that, and we have budgeted those as stable in fiscal '27. We see an increase for fiscal '27 of about $10,000. And for context, our insurance, this specifically would be our bundled rates associated with property liability, cyber insurance. Trustees, as you know, we are a self-insured district. So for those other portions of our coverage, we went from about an $8.35 million contract to an $8.38 million contract across the district, including some realized savings in some of those policies.
Thank you, Madam President.
Trustee Johnson, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have one quick question. Thank you for coming off. Let me come off. On slide number 24, the general fund unassigned ending fund balance. I appreciate you said, Mr. Dayhoff, about the slow, steady, and disciplined approach. I'm curious about some of the tactics that we've used to move from the 2.25% ending fund balance to the 4.5%, and then like what things we'll do to continue to grow that fund balance if we're able to.
Trustee, thank you for the question. Justin Dayhoff for the record. I can't take any credit, of course, for the recovery that existed. That predates my time, and again, I'm happy to stand on and with the shoulders of the team here who's a part of that. But in talking to the team about what we've done and what strategies are best to maintain and continue to build upon as we look forward, we also have to recognize some of the broader financial frankly, windfalls that occurred in that same stretch that allowed the district to take a position. We had 3 tranches of federal impact aid coming from, in this case, second time federal impact aid, the COVID pandemic, right? There were 3 iterations of the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund across those 3 large federal appropriation bills. That was happening at the same time as Nevada began implementing and then also funding the pupil-centered funding plan at new rates, particularly in the 23 to 25 biennium. So that change in conjunction with strong and tight fiscal control allowed the district to both move forward, but to do so diligently. What we've done this last year, both coming into this previous budget for fiscal '26, much of the work being done with the compliance monitor and the team here in preparation is making sure that we have reliable salary calculations, reliable forecasting, and getting better to reduce variation from budget to actual year over year so that in accordance of doing our work, we are best positioned to not just know what we have, but we're making sure to maximize every dollar. And how do we maximize every dollar? We're certain with the dollars that we have.
That's really helpful. And yes, while I do recognize that there were some things that were environmental, and certainly I appreciate you naming those, there still has been lots of incredibly hard work. So just kudos to you and the team for being methodical and intentional about this fiscal responsibility.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I really appreciated the, I guess, how conservative the budget is and how we're not, most of it seemed like it remained the same and consistent is what I'm gathering from each funding source. One of the questions, and I'll let the public know first, is that we go through a lot of training throughout this last year, this year, for the budgets. And so if it seems like we're not asking questions, we've been in this for a very long time. So that's why we've asked a lot of our questions. One of the questions that I wanted to ask in public that I can attest that I receive all the time about the budget, and it almost seems funny, is just where is the marijuana money, the cannabis money going? And I know the answer, but I would like it to be read out in public.
Trustee, thank you for the question. So when Nevada changed from the Nevada plan, which was the previous iteration of the method that the state used to appropriate and determine the amount of appropriation to state education aid to districts across the state, to the people-centered funding plan, which is a new method we do that, they also changed where and how revenue is controlled in order to stabilize that. The people-centered funding plan is a revenue-based model. I say that because in the course of creating that, the state dedicated and assigned particular types of revenue to go into that state education fund each year. Those revenues are then distributed to different districts and to the State Public Charter Authority through that predefined formula, the people-centered funding plan that's in law. One of those straws, if you will, if you want to picture straws going in, is the cannabis money. It was about $75-ish million last year. But I say that, and I say that amount because as we talk about an $8.5 billion budget, one of the reasons it often doesn't reflect is, one, we don't see the revenue in terms of, we don't track specifically the cannabis revenue. We track our people-centered funding plan revenue, right? That's how that comes in. That comes via the revenue the state receives via cannabis.
And thank you. And you mentioned the $75 million. Is that split? Is that CCSD? Is that split by the state of Nevada and the 17 other districts?
Thank you, Trustee. That's exactly right. So that would be proportionally distributed, as part of the aid that gets allocated.
Thank you.
Before I pass off to Trustee Esparza-Stafford, does anybody else who has not spoken yet want to jump in the queue at all? I had a question about it's kind of general, but Trustee Bustamante Adams, when she asked about insurance, it got me thinking. I know we've already identified two major areas, right, that definitely affect the budget. Special education being a big one, and then of course enrollment, obviously. Have you noticed any other trends when putting all of this together? Excuse me. Have you noticed any other trends that are impacting the budget, both in a maybe positive light or in a not so positive light? I know that the cost of food continues to go up on a regular basis, and that's a big expenditure for us. So things like that.
Trustee, thank you for the question. Justin Dayhoff, for the record. We do take a look, particularly when we're constructing large-scale estimates for commodity-based purchases first. So that's one way we see some of those things show up. Fuel, energy being a case of that. We saw at the start of the year that energy prices were low. That's changed more recently, but fortunately because of how that was at the beginning of the year, that balances out as a position as a district for the course of the year. There are areas where we always look to realize savings, and in fact, generating initiatives where we don't spend as much are just as important as generating ways to bring in new resources to the district. We are, and that includes, for example, taking and leveraging the size of our district for trying to identify rates that are best for our staff and our kids. We previously had a rate set with Nevada Energy for the district. That's upcoming, on expiration. So there are opportunities for us to both identify and leverage the economy of scale that we bring. And so we do track that. And I mentioned even the insurance piece this year. One of the initiatives that the superintendent and team have been working on is, around cybersecurity. And we're already seeing our cybersecurity policy went down by about $30,000 this year going into that. And part of that's because of the investments that they're making around protecting our students and our staff, which we will have to continue doing because, my goodness, those things accelerate quickly. But I think we are tracking their avenues of growth that we can better protect ourselves in because of new tools and technology, but there are also increasing costs of fixed goods and commodities that present challenges to doing so.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza-Stoffergen.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate that you offered to, everyone. I apologize. Now I have it. So I really want to ask a granular question, but before I do that, I want to ask, how are we preparing? Like, we see what's happening at the federal level, how Department of Education is starting to push money down to the state or remove funds potentially. Nothing's been decided. I think some things aren't very much being questioned about potential budgets that could happen and could be reduced. So is there anything that we can do localized when we see some of the landscape that's happening? How do we prepare for some of that? And I say that because I'll follow it with the special ed and then I'll go into something else. Thank you.
Trustee, thank you for the question. I think, well, broadly, I'll connect it to something we think about in teaching and learning around, we talk about remediation, we talk about acceleration, but then we talk about the need to be able to do both at the same time. For us, we talk about the need to address system issues that we have. Some of our systems, first of all, even internally, some of the mechanisms we have are old, right? But also, how do we future-proof us to be able to adapt to these? How do we start building multi-year analyses that are out there? How do we start making it clear for our community, for our legislature, that the investments that they're making in the district are generating the return on investment that we know we're seeing from CCSD children and from our schools? And so part of that now is thinking about that operation and efficiency study upcoming and what we can do to make sure that we are fast to move to implement that, but also how are we within business and finance creating systems so that not just within business and finance, but across the whole district, we can track and monitor our destination district priorities, our spending. Where is that going? And how do we, to your point, better future-proof the system so that when changes are coming, when contracts are coming for renewal, we're not playing reaction. We know that that's coming. We're positioned. We're looking not just 1 year out with the budget. We're looking multiple years out and have that visibility and attention so that we can be as proactive and protective as we can to reduce instructional disruption, because at the end of the day, it's always about kids.
I really appreciate that clarity and putting students first and foremost, because what I'm looking at is the reduction in ELL. And so I'm really worried about that, because if we're using general funds to fill special ed, will we in the future have to consider doing the same for ELL? And I know that's just like an out there question, but the reduction, I don't know where that came from. So that's really my question. What was the reduction?
Trustee, happy to answer the question. For what it's worth, there's no reduction. It shows as a reduction because what we, every year, we pass all of our weighted EL funding that we receive down to the schools. 100% of that goes to the allocation formula right now onto schools. What we've done traditionally in order to show some of the project costs is we actually will charge or expend central office-based staff who are supporting the English Language Learner Program on weighted funds from the English Language Learner Program. So we don't get enough from the state to do that. So what we do is we take general fund money, we move it over to our weighted EL funds in order to pay for the central office salaries out of that. That is, you can imagine, and as it probably sounds, is as unnecessary as it it was as unnecessary as it sounds. So we are able to, instead of moving funds around, do what we are doing, which is we are passing those funds down to schools and to classrooms, and central office is taking its own share of general fund hit to support those salaries.
That's what I wanted. I mean, not that I want to hear that, I don't. But I think, I love the forecasting. I love the being more proactive versus reactive because of, we know the revenue is not here in the state. So I guess my last question for now is thinking and looking forward, how often will we receive these updates in order to maybe prepare for the next session, which is coming up? And what can we do to support this conversation and messaging? We're not only with our families, not only with elected officials, but as a whole community. And that's a big loaded question, sorry.
Trustee, thank you for the question. I think that there are likely multiple mechanisms in which the board will continue to engage with the district in this work, including some of the legislative briefings that come before this body as we began discussing priorities was that a week ago? That might have been a week ago. Yes. So there's that. In addition to that, it is incumbent upon me and the Business and Finance Unit to make sure that we continue to do a job in our monthly reporting to make sure that there is visibility and understanding for the why. Why are you getting what you're getting? Why for the community perspective, do they understand that we're sending these reports out? We have our transfers in here. We report these interfund transfers every month. We read the warrants when we go out and come to the board meeting. Those warrants are our payments. That is our checkbook, if you will. You bring that out here every time. So the more that we can just continue to do to work with the superintendent and provide scaffolding for that, not just to this body, but to your point, Trustee Dominguez, on the amount of instruction you receive, how do we do that with our community as well?
Thank you. Before I open up for public comment, Trustee Johnson, one more opportunity if you wanted to say anything else.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anybody else in the queue. So with that, I will go ahead and open 2.02 up to public comment. The first one we have is Mr. Gomez.
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president. I want to be clear because I read a lot of this information out of the A and B section inside the agenda, but first, the budget reduces the funding for English language learners by $6.7 million, and it states in the document transfers are in projected of decreases of 6.6 million, somewhere around there. This is not a minor adjustment. This is a direct cut to one of the most vulnerable students population in the district, and the district claims to support equity, and then explains how cutting millions of English language learners programs aligns with that comment. Secondly, the budget authorizes the superintendent to initially reduction enforce the lack of work and the lack of money. The language is blank in black and white. Before approving this budget, board owes the public a clear explanation on what the position and are the risks, how many classrooms will be affected, and the safeguards of protecting students from the consequences of staffing cuts. Families should not be blindsided by a layoff hidden behind budget language. Third, the district is creating a new staff safety enforcement fund, which is $15 million in projection of citation revenue. This document states that the fund exists, but the count to potential CCSD Police Department issue citation revenue, the district's plan to generate $15 million from citations. The public deserves to know who is being cited, for what, how is being monitored, and how would the district ensure how this does not become a pipeline punitive revenue extract from students and families. Fourth, while the general fund maintains a 4.5% unassigned ending fund balance, we cannot allow the reserve requirement to become an excuse for underfunding classrooms. A budget is not just a number, it is a moral document. It shows what this district values, and right now, too many of these numbers raise questions on whether the priorities match the needs of students, teachers, support staffs, and families. Finally, the debt service fund shows over 155 million increase and increased ending fund balance due to the reduction of expenditures If the district can find 155 million on savings on the debt side, then the public deserves to know what similar creativity and disciplines are not being applied to protect the instructional programs for student services. So at this point, I demand that the board holds itself up to the highest standard of transparency and accountability and do not approve any budget without addressing real concerns openly and directly with the knowledge of knowing the budget. And my community is watching, and trust is earned through honest answers and responsibility stewardship of public funds. And just remember, there's no cross-reference and 2.0 A and B. It's there, and you guys got to really look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dolly Rowan. Did she leave? I think Dolly left. Okay. All right, so that closes out public comment for 2.02. We will go ahead and vote. I'll take a motion, sorry. Trustee Biasotti.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to adopt item 2.02, 2026 to 2027 final budget.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Trustee Bustamante Adams.
I second that motion.
Now we can vote. Thank you. Motion passes. That closes 2.02. That opens us up to 3.01. We have an upcoming meeting Wednesday, June the 3rd at 4 p.m. here in the boardroom. Last but not least, we have public comment on items not listed on the agenda. Does anybody else need to fill out a public comment card? I'm glad I asked. All right. I think we got another one, potentially. Okay. Thank you. Does he need to fill one out? He's on the list. Okay, fantastic. All right, so we'll go ahead and open 4.01. We'll start with Kenneth Cullen. Kenneth? Nope. Okay. Hector Flores? There you are, sir. Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, and CCSD staff. My name is Hector Flores. I am here because I was removed from the CCSD substitute and guest teacher pool, and today I submitted my final appeal packet for reconsideration and reinstatement. I believe this decision should be reconsidered because the review process did not fully test the concerns against records, witnesses, policy, and my response. I'm not here to argue every detail publicly. The packet contains those details because they deserve a careful, private, fact-based review. I understand that Human Resources has discretion regarding substitutes, but when that discretion has serious consequences, it should be exercised carefully, consistently, and based on verified facts, not vague claims, broad labels, or one-sided conclusions. In my substitute services meeting, to my recollection, my side was not meaningfully considered. I felt the school's report were treated as final before my response. Records, witnesses, and context were fully weighed. If one side is accepted automatically and the other side is dismissed, that is not a fair review process. The April 21st email also did not resolve the problem. It said another review was conducted and the original decision stood, but it didn't identify the verified facts, witnesses checked, records reviewed, written policy relied on, or why probationary reinstatement was rejected. That is why today's final appeal packet matters. My broader record also matters. Since becoming a substitute in November 2022, I have served in the types of assignments CCSD needs covered: Title I schools, Transformation Network schools, vacancy assignments, summer work, and specialized settings. I love this work, I take it seriously, I care about the students and schools I serve, and I am in school to become a teacher. I believe my final appeal packet shows that bringing me back is the fair and practical decision. It gives CCSD the full record, not just labels. It also offers a controlled remedy if monitoring is needed. For those reasons, I respectfully request reinstatement to the substitute and guest teacher pool. If CCSD believes monitoring is necessary, I request 60 to 90-day probationary reinstatement with reading expectations, refresher training, check-ins, and monitored placement. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hernandez Pineda? Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Superintendent and members of the board. My name is Itlali N. Hernandez Pineda, and I am here tonight to advocate both as a CCSD employee and as a concerned citizen at Clark County. My journey with this district illustrates the chaotic domino effect of your budget decisions. I was originally hired as an instructional assistant holding my associate's degree in secondary education. However, in November, I was hit by the reduction in force cuts. Determined to stay and serve our students, I spent weeks applying for multiple different positions across the district. Ultimately, I was brought back as a support staff substitute. This past Saturday, I was officially graduated with my bachelor's degree in multidisciplinary studies in education and psychology. Yet, despite holding a 4-year degree, I am paid only $12 an hour. Because I am classified as a support staff substitute, I am given zero health insurance. Members of my own family who do not have a college degree make significantly more money than I do, and they have full benefits. For my university capstone project titled Integrating Cognitive Psychology and Technology in the CCS Classrooms, Benefits and Challenges, I researched the integration of cognitive psychology and technology within the classrooms. I framed this against the backdrop of Nevada's low national education rankings and the post-pandemic shift toward digital learning. My research evaluated the benefits and challenges of 3 distinct tools: gaming, software, and artificial intelligence. However, my research ran straight into the brick wall of CCSD financial reality. How can we successfully integrate AI and modern software when schools lack the basic funding, working hardware, and classroom stability function? We are trapped in a domino effect of chronic short staffing that completely breaks down your district's core operational pillars. My capstone research into CCSD classrooms highlight a devastating reality. Underfunded special education programs are forcing students' ratios to skyrocket from 6 students up to 8 because these classrooms lack stable, permanent assistance due to poverty wages. The domino effect hit me, and I am a substitute stepping in to cover for these vacant gaps. I see firsthand how the lack of stable support staff stretches our special education teachers to their breaking points. It deprives our most vulnerable students of the individualized attention they need to succeed safely. We cannot build a true destination district or support our shared goals of academic excellence on $12 an hour. We are ready to do our part to move this district forward, but you must give us basic tools and living wages to do so.
Thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Gomez.
David Gomez, for the record, Nevada Peace Alliance president. I didn't bring no speech up here to read because I have to get through that really quick. But, you know, I don't really know. First of all, our CFO team, I mean, they've been handed a responsibility from past issues, and they're doing an excellent job. They're doing whatever they've been given, and he's doing the best job possible. And the man came through the neighborhood of East Las Vegas and walked through just to make sure that he understands what's going on in our communities over there. He wanted to understand as a CFO what is really happening. But besides that, you know, doing things that make no sense will get you severely in trouble with the public. And I guess everybody wants to be a trustee that's up there, and everybody wants to be this shining person to their constituents, but when you do the wrong thing, I'm telling you, you're gonna face the consequences of the public. I have received several calls from last week's agenda item, and they were telling me how dissatisfied they were in the decisions. Now, Channel 3, I think it was, made it look like a polishing superstar agenda. Oh, yeah, they approved the initiative for AI and this and that. They covered the rest of it up, but they just made sure that they only show that part. But people were listening, and they were really ticked off about what happened. And they're not happy. But, you know, I don't bootlick nobody, not for no vote. I don't go and praise and bow my knees for anybody. The only endorser I need is Jesus Christ, and it will stay that way, and it always will remain that way. And that's heartbreaking, listening to somebody say that they make $12 an hour. I mean, In-N-Out makes more money than that. Couldn't we even match them? Think about that. You know, a kid makes more than most people that are professionals, and that's sad. That should not be. If we're going to be destination district number 1, we have to show that we take care of our people. We take care of our staff. We take care of everybody. I know this is a large weight that's been placed on the superintendent, and she's been given this big monumental thing to carry that people have messed up in the past. And there's been some disenfranchisement with the community and the school district. But at the end of the day, what are we doing to take care of our people? My employees worked for me extremely hard. I would miss days and they say, don't worry, sir, I get up and I take care of it for you. Why? Because I took care of them. I took care of what mattered to them, what needs were needed. If we don't do that, we are going to fail. I'm telling you, we're going to collapse. And being a trustee during a collapsing time is a bad deal. So you better really think and study these documents really hard.
Thank you. Ms. Olmos?
Good evening again, Ms. Olmos. For the record, I am the ESEA Secretary Treasurer. Hello. I think this is all moving in the right direction, which I love, but I would be remiss if I didn't speak up about other items that we should work on to improve special education. As ESEA is so grateful for CCSD hearing us that our SPTAs and our IAs needed training, they went out this year and completed those trainings with no compensation and minimal complaints. One important training that they are required to take is CPI. Unfortunately, licensed educators are not required to do the same. So they put this on the aides to do the restraints. ESEA has received calls asking to help with this. Our members have had CPS called on them because parents now call when they receive the 624 forms sent home. This often leads to school police coming in and reading the employee their rights. They haven't done anything wrong, but parents can always feel that it's not okay to do a restraint. So now the employees are losing faith in their ability to do their job. They feel that always having to be the one to do the restraint is unfair. We are asking that all licensed educators who work with our special education students please be required to take the CPI trainings as well. But perhaps do it on staff development days so it doesn't cost us $50 an hour to do their trainings. Lastly, I would like to address resource aides. Our resource aides in our schools are 5-hour employees. We need to increase those positions to 6 hours. Schools should not have to look into their budgets to give an additional hour for those aides. We already don't have enough resource aides to cover their IEP minutes. IEPs should not be written based on if we can cover their minutes with the staff we have on campus, but we should be writing them to provide the best plan for each student. I ask you to look into these concerns as we plan for our next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment 4.01. Before we make a motion to adjourn, I'd like to turn it over to our superintendent for a quick announcement.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. It's bittersweet these nights like this when we want to acknowledge great work of employees. So the first person that I would like to acknowledge this evening is Carmen. You all know that she's been in the she's worked with 9 different superintendents. So I think she gets 20 medals, like all across. And you all know that she started CCSD when she was a kindergartner. So, to go from being a kindergartner to being in the superintendent's office, working with so many diverse groups, remaining calm, keeping schedules. I don't even know how she does it every single day. But tonight is her last board meeting. So I wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to celebrate her. Oh, there you go. Absolutely. And then near and dear to all of your hearts, Miss Caitlin. Miss Caitlin has been with the school district for many years, also served in the superintendent's office before taking the job to lead the board office. She does a phenomenal job. She helped work through all of the governance policies, right? And all your stacks and papers. I don't need to reiterate everything that you already know about the work that she does, and she does it with such grace and care. I know that she is going to a promotion for her. We're excited. Always want to leave the door open to make sure that you return, but it's been a wonderful year for me working with you. And I know many of the board members have worked with you for much longer. So wanted to celebrate you this evening as well, as this is your last meeting as well. So you get a standing ovation as Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I give that motion, I'd like to congratulate our graduates of 2026 happening this month. So happy graduation. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like also say happy graduation season. Good luck, colleagues. It is a busy time. Carmen and Caitlin, thank you for all the work you have done. Caitlin, just big shout out. 11, schedules is really hard. So we appreciate you. You are seen. I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's vote. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.